Right now, without your permission, someone is programming your child. Not a hacker, not a stranger, but school system, the algorithm, culture, the institutions around them. And the most dangerous part, most people never realize it's happening. Not as kids, not as adults, not ever. My father made me aware of external programming when I was young, but the moment it became undeniable for me was in college. I was sitting in a sociology class. Within the first few sessions, it became pretty clear. This professor was a Marxist, and she was projecting it onto every student in that room. Now, here's what scared me, because it wasn't that she believed in Marxism or had a belief system. Everyone does. What scared me was that almost nobody in that room noticed. They were absorbing it, downloading and installing it without any awareness that it was happening. So I started asking myself questions that I couldn't stop asking. Was it just her? Or was the whole department involved? How much does the university know about what's being taught? How much of what I've been taught my entire life was someone else's agenda dressed up as education? That was the moment I understood what my father had been trying to show me. Awareness is the first line of defense, and most people never get it. I started working with a client when he was around 28 years old. He was successful in many ways, very thoughtful and very hardworking. But when we started to look at his financial decisions, why he wasn't growing, why he kept playing it safe, why every major opportunity felt like a risk that he shouldn't take, we noticed a pattern. Almost every financial decision he had ever made had been filtered through this lens of this question. Is this right or wrong? Not, is this smart? Not, is this a good opportunity? Not, what does the data say? Is this right or wrong? And where did that framework come from? His church, his school systems, the institution that raised him. Now let me be clear. I'm a Christian, a believer in Jesus Christ. And the Bible does not teach us to be sheep who never question what we're told. Romans 12:2 says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." That's not a passive instruction. That's a call to active discernment. So the problem wasn't my client's faith. The problem was that nobody ever taught him to bring his own discernment to what he was being taught. Nobody taught him to ask, is this true because I've examined it? Or is this true because I was told it was? So at 28 years old, he realized he had never asked that question. And an unexamined framework isn't wisdom. It's just programming running on autopilot. Here's why the right versus wrong programming is the hardest to see, because it wraps control in morality. So when someone tells you what's right and wrong and you've never questioned it, you don't feel controlled. You feel guided. You feel safe. You feel like you're doing the right thing. And that feeling is exactly what makes it so powerful, because you'll defend programming that feels moral. You'll pass it to your children, and then you'll mistake compliance for virtue. This is how institutions, well-meaning or otherwise, create generations of people who never question the rules they were handed. And it's not because they're weak. It's because they were never shown that questioning is allowed. It's not just institutions. Today, the programming is happening faster and from more directions than at any point in human history. Your child's algorithm knows more about their insecurities than you do. It knows what makes them keep scrolling, what makes them feel inadequate, what makes them compare, what makes them come back. And it is optimizing all the time for engagement, not for their growth. But here's what most parents miss about this. The algorithm isn't just stealing their attention, it's writing their values. Every day that your child spends inside an unmonitored algorithm, their belief systems are being installed at a speed that no institution ever could. At least a church or a school moves slowly enough that a discerning mind has a chance to catch it. The algorithm doesn't give you that window. And that's why the right versus wrong programming that my clients struggled to see at 28, your child could be running a version of it by 16, maybe even younger. Faster installations, deeper roots. That makes them harder to see. This is what's at stake. Here's the good news. You can't rewrite code that you can't see, but the moment you can see it, everything changes. The moment you can observe a program, you can question it. And that moment that you question it, you loosen its control. My client didn't need to abandon his faith or reject his education. He needed to bring discernment to both. To ask, did I choose this belief, or was it handed to me? Does this framework serve who I'm becoming, or who someone else needed me to be? And that's not rebellion. That's exactly what Romans 12:2 is calling us to. The renewing of the mind, the new, active, chosen, upgraded mind. Your child is being programmed right now by their school, the algorithm, their peer groups, their institutions, and every voice that speaks into your life with authority. Most of it happens below the surface, and most of it will never get questioned unless you teach them to question it. And that's not to be cynical, it's not to be rebellious, and it's not to reject every authority. It's to build discernment, to ask, where did this belief come from? Did I choose it or did it choose me? Does it serve who I want to become? And if we don't design that environment intentionally, culture designs it for us. And culture optimizes for engagement, not for a child's growth, not for their resilience or their confidence. A child who learns to ask those questions early doesn't get lost in someone else's agenda. They write their own. I want you to think back to my client, 28 years old before he realized he'd never questioned a single framework that he'd been handed. 28 years of life choices, financial decisions, and cap potential, all running inside programming that he didn't choose and never examined. Now ask yourself this: how old will your child be when they have that moment? And when they do, will someone have already taught them to see it? Or will they be staring into a mirror at age 35, finally asking the questions that they should have been taught to ask at age 13? Awareness is the first upgrade, and you can't renew a mind that doesn't know it needs to be renewed. Upgrade the code, the performance will follow. If this video shifted something for you, please share it with a parent who needs to hear it, because the earlier this conversation starts, the earlier a child gets their upgrade. Like this video and subscribe for more.